Oh, sorry. All right, it's 11:15. We're picking back up with our general government offices and departments, and this is a continuation of the public hearing from this morning. So we are reconvening to accept and consider public comment related to the 26-27 biennial budget. The general government categories that are going to be addressed here in this segment are assessor's office, auditor's office, commissioner's office, treasurer, human resources department, central services department, and information technology. And so we're going to reopen, and we'll have Summer Miller, our budget and fiscal manager, presenting information on the budget topics and any additional information requested by the board. We will then have a public comment section where those wishing to testify will have 3 minutes to make comment or ask questions of particular department heads and elected officials. The office or department representative may answer your questions after your testimony is complete or may follow up at a later point. Those in person will be called to testify first, then anyone online. Time may not be given to another person. And when you are called on, please state your name and area of the county in which you reside for the record. So with that, I'm going to turn to Summer.
Thank you. Good morning again. So this is the general government section of our budget hearing. This includes the assessor, the auditor, the commissioner's office, the treasurer, human resources, central services, and information technology. Oh, there we go. First up is the assessor. Our assessor is Stephen Drew. The office appraises property values and maintains property information. There were no requests submitted for the preliminary approval. However, the assessor has asked that I make a statement that we are currently researching professional service budget amounts that were added in fiscal year 2025 so that we can determine what the budget for mailing services and costs would be in 2026 and beyond. Next up is our auditor. Mary Hall is the auditor of Thurston County, administers elections, recording, and licensing, provides county financial services. The preliminarily approved requests were to fund a records position in the clerk's office, purchase new election equipment, an election supervisor position, removing the end date, an LNR and election revenue updates, as well as general fund reduction. Next is the Board of County Commissioners Office. Commissioner Ty Menser is our chair. Commissioner Wayne Fournier is our vice chair. We have Commissioner Carolina Mejia, Commissioner Emily Klaus, and Commissioner Rachel Grant. Leonard Hernandez is our county manager. I am Summer Miller, budget and fiscal manager. The Commissioner's Office enacts county laws, sets the county budget, monitors funds, and oversees departments. The preliminary approved requests are to extend the end date for ARPA-funded positions, real estate excise tax funding for Parks and Trails Capital, the 2016 bond payment and repayment plan, shifting that from detention sales tax, conservation futures rollover budget, REIT 1 bond payment adjustments, as well as general fund reductions. Yes.
I just add here, commissioners, that many of the slides, if not all of them, have the note general fund reduction. Even though several of the offices and departments didn't actually see a general fund reduction, I'll use the example of Superior Court because the board made decisions to restore funding. The reason we have it listed here is because we're listing what was part of the submissions and the interaction between the budget office and those offices and departments. But it's important to note, which we'll probably roll up on Wednesday, just an overview for the commissioners and the public, how everything shook out over all the hard work the commissioners made in working to restore, shift expenses so that they could restore budget authority to offices and departments. Back to you.
Next in the Commissioner's Office is the Countywide Services Fund, which was is known as the non-departmental. It's commonly known as non-departmental, funds countywide projects and initiatives that benefit the county as a whole. There's a 26-27 PEG revenue and expenditure adjustment, TC Connect stabilization, 2016 bond payments and repayment from detention sales tax, as well as the general fund reduction. Next is our treasurer, Jeff Gadman. Manages public funds for the county and small jurisdictions, receives tax payments and pays debts. There were no submissions that were included in this preliminarily approved budget. Human Resources, we have Maria Aponte. She is our director. They provide personnel and risk management services to county offices and departments. There was a general fund reduction. Central Services, our director is Kim Burnett. They provide facility, equipment, fleet, archive, and mail services to county offices and departments. They also participated in the general fund reduction. And finally, we have information technology, and our director is Ms. Sherry Ilg. They ensure that the county information technology systems and infrastructure are up to date and support the county's work goals. And the request that was preliminarily approved was a TC Connect stabilization cost.
And IT also did participate in the general fund reduction. So we appreciate their ingenuity and creativity.
Thank you for that.
Questions for Summer before we get on to public comment? Okay, then first up is John Pettit.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Pettit. I'm from Rich Road. I have several different questions on some sheets, which I'm going to distribute to the elected officials who are going to be participating in the response. I do have an extra question also for the assessor, since he's had I believe, an opportunity to look, and he kind of checks numbers real good, which will be, are you confident with the numbers presented in the proposed budget that's there? Or does the budget all look correct and everything? I have questions myself, including negative funds from, in certain budgets from the internal services having a payment out in a fund, which is kind of like, how does that happen, that internal services making a payment? Okay, the question's real simple. And my concern is obviously that the dollar figures are not adequate properly. And the other part of my comment, which I will follow in with the internal services appearing to continually go up on all of these different funds, would it not be appropriate to increase the actual amounts of personnel amounts to a higher level, like 105% more than what they were in 25, plus 3% for 27, and then of course follow up with reducing the internal services charges, so you don't even necessarily have to come up with any extra money. The money's already in existence in the system. One question I will have when it comes to the Commissioner's office, there is a very substantial reduction in personnel amount. With that substantial reduction and such, could you identify who you're going to be cutting from your personnel in the Commissioner's office? Is it going to be, for instance, all of your executive aides? Are they all going to disappear because we just don't have money for them? So that's a particular question for the Board of County Commissioners and where they're going to come up with the difference. Once again, I support increasing up to pre-standards plus 105% for 26, plus another 3% for 27, and then reduce the other portions as necessary. And I will call it 3 minutes, even though it may not actually be timed right now. So we'll let it go, and hopefully if there's other comments that elected officials or their representatives choose to make in regards to any particular topic that they're concerned about. I would like to hear what those concerns are. Thank you.
Okay, anyone? Professor Drew?
Good morning. I think I should start by acknowledging my witnessing of the hard work that you've done, the extent to which, with your busy schedules, you've made yourselves available, the four of you and Rachel, who's online. Without that, I would not have had really any hope of having our situation understood. And so I want to express gratitude for that. In light of the fact that we didn't see, in light of the fact you adopted a no-cuts budget for our office, it may be a little odd, some of the things I have to say, but please bear with me. So in answering Mr. Pettit's questions, first, what I would say is that what is the current FTE budgeted for your office? The budget before you reflects 32 FTEs, but we don't in fact have 32 FTEs, and we don't have authority to fill all those FTEs. We have 31 FTEs. There is an artifact in the budget that has a value of about $100,000 that shouldn't be in our budget, or we would request that the FTE be authorized. It actually is an FTE that was one of our budget requests. That's not a sincere request. I get that that's not happening, but it should be corrected. And secondly, there was a budget amendment approved in a quarterly budget amendment to fund our annual mailing, the portion that was not funded. And that request was not a one-time request. That was a permanent annual request. Our office is somewhat unique in that the other offices that have mandatory mailings, they're funded in interfund rates. That's not the case with our office. It's part of our operating budget. And so not fully funding it takes money from other places in our budget. And when the cost of postage goes up, those increases need to occur as they do in the interfund rates. So we both have more money than we should for that one FTE, and we're wanting to have the budget that you adopt reflect another roughly $53,000, which was approved prior in a prior year as a budget amendment. And then in addition to that, you all had a discussion and reached consensus on a policy that I completely support with respect to the FTEs cut in this budget cycle. As I understand the discussion and the consensus, is that those FTEs should be filled first when new revenue, when additional revenue comes online. And I don't know how binding you all felt that was, but that was a sea change. That's an important policy that you discussed. And it might well be expanded to, maybe that's the first tier. But we lost FTEs in the prior budget process. And we requested FTEs as budget amendments in this budget process to fill those FTEs that were removed in the prior budget process. So we feel like that these FTEs that we lost in 2 years ago perhaps should be the second priority in that policy before we spend money on new things. Because in answering Mr. Pettit's question, do I feel that the FTEs in my office are adequate to get the work done? They aren't, and you all know that. We talked with you. We're to a place where we can't get our work done in time, and we're so close to the end of the not the statutory requirement, but the functional requirement. We've used all the flexibility in the calendar to still get our work done with a high level of quality, but we're teetering right on the edge of impacting all of the budget processes throughout the county if we can't get our work done. And so the FTEs we requested, the FTEs that we lost in the long run, in the short run, they're critical. we'll bust our butt, we always do, but that policy might well be extended to address that issue for the folks that saw budget cuts 2 years ago, the FTEs in particular. Do you have excessive personnel to perform the duties? You know, no. Virtually everything we do is statutorily required. I think I pointed out to you that to verify sales, we mail out a letter to new business and home buyers. We want to get that data back, so we provide a self-addressed stamped envelope. It is the single thing in our office that isn't mandatory. And it's a couple $1,000, $2,000 a year roughly. And then in the mandatory optional world, the one thing that's been missing in that discussion are those expenses required by union contract? So there's statutory requirements and union contract requirements. And so we have a number of those that, you know, safety equipment and safety gear and that sort of thing. And they aren't statutorily required, they're union contract required. Population in the county's grown. Every few years, the senior exemption program is updated. It expands the program substantially, and there's a wave of work that comes with that. Many counties are able to add an FTE to handle that wave. That wave happens next year, and so we will be enduring that without the staff, additional staff to deal with that. We are pursuing software and automation, and you'll see that in a week or so at a council meeting. That's consistent with legislation that should pass this session, which will allow us to automate part of that process. So those are the steps we're trying to take to offset the fact that we aren't going to have the additional staff that we need for that. I think that's pretty much everything. I just encourage you to support, I guess it's my desire to see this budget that you adopt ultimately reflect everything it should reflect in my budget. Thank you.
Any others? Treasurer Gavin, you're up.
Thank you. Jeff Gadman, Thurston County Treasurer. First, I want to acknowledge the incredible Herculean effort the 5 of you put into this effort this year for the budget. The hardest time to budget is when you're looking at reduced revenues. And having sat in your shoes in another role in my life, I recognize completely having to look at people and say, I'm sorry, they're just, wallet's empty. It's tough, but you guys handled it well. And I think what you came up with in the end is a result of good efforts. And so I want to thank you for that. Also, I want to thank you mercifully for not making any cuts to my office. As you know, for years and years I've been saying I run a minimal operation, and I'm proud of the efficiencies we have. Proud of the dedicated staff I have, which I couldn't accomplish it without them. And so thank you very much for that. I do want to clarify, postage is a line item in my budget. And that was one of the things I was going to comment. I'm not going to read each question, Mr. Pettit, but I'm going to summarize answers. You know, as you know, everything my office does is mandated by law. There used to be a couple of niceties like late postcards that I did. But since I've taken office, that has gotten written into RCW that I have to do that. And I don't mind. Again, fortunately, you've chosen to fund my office. I currently have 12 FTEs plus myself. That is fewer than what the office had in 2008, and it's just by the grace of technology advances that we're able to operate the way we are without coming to you and saying, hey, I need more people. The biggest threat to my budget in any year is postage. We just don't know. You know, the Postal Service used to give you a good 3-year warning on a postage increase, and so we could plan for that, right? You could plan for that in our budget. And they simply don't do that anymore. They are raising rates twice a year, January and July. we don't know what the increases are until they happen. This last one that happened this last July, they actually did give like a 2-month warning, which was helpful. So, like I said, that's the biggest threat I've got. I mean, paper costs for the statements and mailings that I have, that's a threat, but that's usually, follows inflation. So, like I said, it's just postage because we never know what that rate increase is going to be from one time to the next. And the fact that it happens more than once mid-budget cycle. Fortunately, I haven't had to come to you yet and ask for an amendment. I hope I never do, but I can't promise never. So anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you, staff, for your help through this process, and let's keep up the good work.
Auditor Hall, I see your hand.
Good morning. I also want to thank you for all of the hard work you've put into this budget cycle. I know it's been difficult. We are navigating a brand new financial system, which has certainly been challenging. And I know my office, it was difficult for us. In fact, we were unable to come up with a preliminary budget because we didn't have access to the budget modules. So, the preliminary budget we presented to you, unfortunately, we had to list all of the errors we found. But, we hope moving into the year that we're going to be seeing new revenue that wasn't anticipated, which is what we expect, as well as ending up with a much higher ending fund balance that is currently in the budget. So that's a good thing. I do want to respond to Mr. Pettit's questions, and I'm sorry I'm not in the office, so I have a piece of paper of questions that he answered, but I think they're important to discuss during this presentation. And I really don't know exactly the line items, what was approved and what was not approved. But the one thing that I want to echo from the assessor and the treasurer is we did not receive any increase in our postage rate or postage request. And we are one of the single largest mailers in Thurston County simply because we have about 220,000 registered voters, and we are required to mail a ballot to every voter for each and every election. We also have several notices that we are required to mail to voters because of the National Voter Registration Act. This is a federal requirement, and we send a tremendous amount of notices every single year. So we will have to absorb those cuts, which is essentially a cut. And it's important to note that the only thing we do in our office, the only service we provide that is not mandated by state law is passport services, which is a moneymaker for the county. So I'm reluctant to cut that when I cut staff. And also we have all of our licensing and recording staff cross-trained, and I can't cut licensing staff because we provide surplus funds to the county, and that would be a violation of contract. So that department is off limits when I have to look at cuts to personnel, because I am taking a cut, unlike the treasurer and the assessor's office. And we currently are struggling with the number of staff we have. A few years ago, we were required to open a permanent second voting center for every general election. We also have to set up a student engagement hub at the Evergreen State College. So we have our regular voter services in the Mottman complex. We have our ballot processing center, which is an incredibly large operation. We have to staff a second voting center, as well as the Evergreen State College. So that is 4 locations, and I have 9 full-time staff. So that makes it very difficult. I see in the budget that you did approve and took the end date off of the supervisor position. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And I also want you to know that we recognize 100% revenue for that position in the exact year that the expenses are incurred, so that it's really a net zero effect to the general fund. But we still spread our personnel it's very lean when we are in large general elections. The other challenge we're having is in financial services, and we did ask for this position, which was not approved, was a trainer and someone to act as support for our TC Connect. Currently, we are the technical support for the entire county. Every service we provide in financial services is really servicing all of the staff in the county. Those are our customers. So we will be required to have a slower response time, unfortunately, to some of those questions and the training tools that we really need to develop, simply because those folks are also performing other critical jobs with critical deadlines. So we are going to be challenged with personnel issues throughout the year. And we have really grown in population. We're one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And of course, in 2028, and I know we're not in that budget cycle yet, but our voter registration numbers skyrocket, and it begins in the midterms, which is next year. So it is going to be difficult, but I can assure you that we run a very lean operation, which is why I'm a big believer in having people cross-trained as many positions and jobs as possible. And, but it will be a challenge. We do not have adequate funding in the event that we have a statewide or countywide recount in 2026, like we had in 2024. We typically try to budget for at least 2 countywide elections as well as a recount. So the challenge there is if we have one in next year's general election, we will need to come back for a supplemental budget request. And the reason we budget for that is because we don't know if that is going to happen, as was a great example this year in the port race. We watched results come in, early to mid-November, and now we know we have a recount on, fortunately it's a machine route, which are less labor intensive. But should we be in the position that we were in 2024 with the statewide mandatory hand recount, we will need to come back to you for additional funding. And we are always happy to be a resource in working with the budget office to ensure that we come up with the correct base budget numbers, the starting budget numbers, as well as revenue. We do the revenue forecast for fund balance and cash balance and budget to actual. So I encourage you to please work with my department as a resource, because, in the past, we've had a really good synergy between our 2 departments. And I really hope that we can improve that moving into the future. So thank you very much. Thank you, Summer, for all the hard work you do. We are very anxious to see the details of our budget, because currently we have not seen those numbers after many requests. So thank you again, commissioners, for your hard work and for working hard to find that money to restore where you could. That did not go unnoticed for any elected official, and we really do appreciate that. And the positions we do have to cut, I agree with Assessor Drew, if you could ensure that those are restored as quickly as possible, because we are going to be required to reduce some programs or eliminate some programs, which I would like to put back in place in time for the general election. So thank you. Thank you for the time. I appreciate the ability to comment.
Thank you, Auditor Hall. Thank you to the treasurer and assessor as well for your input. I don't see anyone, there's no one else signed up. I don't see anyone else in the boardroom that's not county staff, and I don't see anyone online. So last call for public comment on general government department budgets.
Chair.
Yes.
I have been contacted by a couple people since this meeting started, letting me know that the Zoom link on the website does not work. So there are folks trying to give public comment that haven't been able to get into the meeting. I did inform the clerk and I think she's working on it, but I wanted to just say that for the record. I've had 4 people so far since we started reach out and say they tried to give public comment and they couldn't access the Zoom. So I don't know how we wanna handle that.
If I may, the Zoom link is working online and a couple of other folks have used the link to join. I did reach out to the one constituent they provided the contact for
Okay, perfect.
and sent them the link. I haven't seen them try to join back yet, but we'll be on the lookout
Okay.
for that.
I will
If there's-
point out while you guys are discussing that we have several specific pieces this afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock is kind of a follow-up catch-alls where anybody that wasn't available at the specific time could give a comment on any piece of the budget from the whole day. So
Okay.
that would be an opportunity, if somebody's having trouble now, they could hopefully join at 4, and
Okay.
hopefully we've resolved that issue by then.
It is working?
Is so it's working
Just
now?
confirm, it is working?
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll let them know that they can come at 4. And then my other question is, the Zoom link, is it a separate Zoom link for each section or is it the same Zoom link for the whole day?
The same Zoom link for each public hearing.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
see Bob Thornton, is that anyone online who has been able to? Bob Thornton, are you here for public comment? Everybody else is staff. Okay. Then we are going to recess until 1:30, where we will pick up with transportation, environment, land use. That's essentially our CPED department, community planning and economic development, and public works. We have it's gonna go quickly at that point. At 2 p.m., Health and Human Services, which is PHSS, Public Health and Social Services, and Emergency Services. 2:45 is our water and sewer general facility fees and charges that have to be handled separately. 3 o'clock is the revenue sources to support the 26-27 biennial budget. 3:30 is our capital improvement program. These are all sections of public comment that can be given. And then 4 o'clock, as I said, is sort of a follow-up catch-all for folks that didn't have a chance earlier in the day. So at this point, it's 11:48 a.m. and we're in recess. till 1.